Give me a break, man. Give me a break, man. Let's watch Victor from Japan.
Hey guys, first I want to say thank you for those of you who have written me and said you really enjoy the Jnews. These are things that I like doing. They're educational for me because I learn a bit about Japanese culture. Because you know I have to research it a bit before I check my facts before I give it to you. A little background on me in case you're new to the channel. My name is Victor. I'm an American. I've been here 28 years, and Japanese is pretty good, but I'm always learning. And one of the hardest things to understand is Japanese news. This week, those of you, I've a couple things. I'm way behind because I have a job, I have a life, I have my own school, etc. But we had a big YouTube party, and I have lots of footage, and I haven't put it up yet. Lots of really cool stuff. I have new mics and stuff, and I've been recording a lot. This is what I'm using right now, just so you can see. And I recorded quite a bit in Tokyo, so you'll be getting some of that soon. Please be patient. However, but there's some stuff that I want to catch up on before I go back and show you some of that stuff. Anyway, I did meet a lot of great people in Tokyo, a lot of YouTubers here in Japan, a lot of expats, a lot of foreigners who are making videos as well. Of course, a lot of Japanese as well. They're now the biggest market. But we had a big, like a week of disasters here in Japan. In case you missed it, it's actually raining right now. I don't know if the mic's picking that up. Probably, I think it is. It's a pretty good mic. Anyway, we had the biggest typhoon in 25 years hit Japan. In English, you would call that typhoon Jebi, because as you might know, they name American hurricanes and typhoons in order of the alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So as you can say, we're up to J, which is whatever letter that is. What is that number? 12 or something? What's it? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So number 10. That was embarrassing. I hope I got that right. I haven't been drinking, but it's possible to make mistakes like that, even basic ones. So in Japan, that hurricane, however, is number 21 this year. What do they call it Jebi in English? It should be, that doesn't make sense. Maybe I'm wrong about the name system. Anyway, and someone figured that out. I thought they were named in alphabetical order back in the States. Maybe the storms in Japan are only named if they attain hurricane status. Maybe that's it. That might make sense. So maybe we've had 21 storms this year. Anyway, the 21st typhoon, as we say in Japanese, or taifu, here's the kanji. Taifu in Japanese, was the strongest typhoon or hurricane to hit Japan in 25 years, and it caused massive destruction all over well, mostly the west side of where I am. I'm in Nagoya, which is west of Tokyo, so we didn't get too bad from Tokyo and Nagoya, but Osaka was. If you do searches for Taifu 21, I'll give you a link in the description. You can see all these videos of just cars being blown over and destroyed, and it looks like someone just went like Godzilla hit Japan and destroyed it. Anyway, this morning, at 3 a.m. this morning in Hokkaido, Japan experienced a 6.7 earthquake on the Japanese earthquake measuring system, which they have here. I don't know what that's called exactly. Of course, we have the Richter scale, but they just have the Japanese scale. And the shindo, or the magnitude, was 6.7. And I believe it goes up to 7, so that's pretty much maxed out, right? Anyway, last I saw, well, this morning they said 1 had died, then a few hours later 2 had died, and then a few hours later 4 had died. Last I've heard 8 people have died. Over 100 people have been injured, and over 30 people have been missing, and it's caused massive landslides and mudslides all over Hokkaido, hitting all over the Hokkaido area. And for those of you who are studying Japanese, the way you say landslide is jisuberi, which I don't use. I use doshakuzure. I'm sorry, doshakuzure. That's something else. Doshakuzure is landslide, and then doro no jisuberi would be mudslide. But I think you can basically say doro doshakuzure and people would understand. I'm not sure if that's actually a word. I believe that's what my students were saying this morning, but let's see. Doro is mud, and dosha is like well, dirt. Kuzure is like to crumble or fall apart. So let's see if that word that comes up as a one word. Doro, no, it doesn't come up with one, so yeah, it doesn't say that. Oh, there's another word here that looks like landslide according to the kanji. And that word, for those of you who are studying Japanese, this is a little Japanese lesson for you here. That would be doshasaigai. Yeah, of course. Saigai is a disaster, so literally land disaster, but landslide. So doshasaigai. Okay. So anyway, that's the latest with that. But today's video is actually about something that's I hope if you stuck around past this introduction part, which is still, you know, part of the education of Jnews. And by the way, thanks for, yeah, I got a few emails and a few new people joined up on my Patreon because they just want to support the Jnews. And if you want to support me on Patreon, please check the link in the description. Enough of that. So, tattoos. Now, tattoos in Japan. I often get, you know, I'm on Facebook. Thing about Facebook and the gaijin community, the foreign community, the expat community. The funny thing is that a lot of us tend to complain to each other about Japanese things that bug us, which is kind of ridiculous in a way and inefficient. I mean, it's just you're basically preaching to the choir because nothing gets changed if you're just complaining to a bunch of other English speakers on Facebook. And I've often pointed this out, like, why are you bitching about this to us? You know, go if you really want to change things, you need to talk to the Japanese about it. Make videos in Japanese about it. There's no point talking to other foreigners on Facebook. So this happened again, of course, last week. I want to say, I don't, maybe I shouldn't say her name, but I don't even know. She's a white girl. I think it sounds like an insult. She's a white girl. I believe she's Australian, but I'm not sure. Anyway, she's got some tattoos and she's a model and she works here in Japan. And she's annoyed by the fact that, you know, you sometimes will be denied access to onsens or hot springs or public baths or public swimming pools or even public beaches, certain beaches, if you have tattoos. So for those of you who don't know that, in Japan, tattoos are quite taboo. And you're not allowed sometimes to go into certain places. And even employment, like you have to cover that shit up if you've got tattoos or you will get fired. I know English teachers who have sleeves of tattoos and they wear long sleeve shirts even in the summertime, which is really, you know, must be really miserable because it gets really hot here. And anyway, it's just part of the culture here. I'm not here to defend that or anything, but there's been an attempt by the government recently. So I wanted to bring some good news to you for those of you who do have tattoos or are interested in that tattoos. First of all, this video is not you know, this is not like an what do we call that? A pro tattoo or protest video at all. Okay, I'm not going to bitch about that. If you want to leave your long rant in the comments, feel free, but that's not really what this is about. Japan is that way, okay? Just to clear things up. Japan has a taboo against tattoos. If you don't like it, well, that's fine. Bitch about it all you want, but you're not really going to change things by leaving comments on this video. And it can be frustrating, I understand, but that's life. That's the way society is, whether you like it or not. I do want to provide some perspective on this, though. Things that even a lot of Japanese don't realize, okay? So let's go back in time a little bit. Way back in the day, the original people who wore tattoos in Japan, like thousands of years ago, were the Ainu people, which are like the Aboriginal people of Japan. They live mostly in Hokkaido, and it was part of their culture. And if you go back and check out some like records of Chinese visiting Japan, there were reports of certain Japanese wearing tattoos, but it wasn't widespread at all. And for a couple thousand years, it just existed here and there. It wasn't anyway widespread. Then a little bit later, you know, as time moved on, I guess, tattoos started being associated in different ways. For example, if you were a criminal, people would tattoo your face or your body somewhere visibly, so to label you as a criminal. And there were even some reports of some small towns in Japan in which people would actually write the kanji for dog on your forehead to indicate that you were a criminal. And so it became associated with criminals. But at the same time, it also started becoming associated with merchants. And they would now this is really weird, they would, and I just learned this too, but they would apparently cover their skin in tattoos to show their wealth because it was very expensive. And they would use techniques that wood block artists would use. And anyway, one of the most famous ones was injecting an ink into the skin that would turn blue or green, and I'm sure they learned other colors as well. But anyway, they would merchants would use these, would tattoo their bodies to show that they were rich because there were laws apparently that prevented them from displaying their wealth. You know, I don't ask me. I don't get the details. But anyway, the point is, on one side it's used to indicate that you're a criminal. On the other side is to show that you're rich as hell, right? So there were those two things. Now and then, of course, yeah, that's about it. I believe there were some reports also of prostitutes who would use them to show what they would do, but don't quote me on that. I've read quite a bit over the last week or so, and my mind is a bit confused. But this is where it's not confusing. This is where a lot of Japanese don't even realize this. In 1868, this is the first year of the Meiji period, and when a emperor relinquishes power, usually by dying, they start a new era, so to speak, and a new period is named. And actually, that's how the Japanese calendar works. So, for example, I was born in 1968 in American speak, but in Japanese speak it would be Showa 42 or Showa 42. And if you come to Japan, it's a good idea to find out what year you were born according to the Japanese calendar, because a lot of documents will ask you for that. Like what year in, of course, some of you are not Showa because that's a long time ago, but some of you guys will be a different. Anyway, there are different periods. When Meiji started, which is, I believe, 1868, the Meiji period was trying to clean up the Japanese image and didn't want foreigners to think bad of them. And I gotta pause right there and say, wow, even back then, Japanese were obsessed with their international image, which is something that goes back. I mean, at the turn of the century, I believe. Again, history. Don't quote me on this. It doesn't. I may have the time period wrong, but I do know that there was a time when Japan's navy was considered very formidable and full of real tough badasses, basically. But in Japan, they were so badass that they considered regular heterosexual sex to be nothing. Like, dude, you had sex with a woman? So what? Anybody can have sex with a woman. If you want to be a badass, you dominate a man. You know, you take over a man. So they would, like, I guess, you know, dominate each other and engage in homosexual activity. But when this and they were tough, and they were tough ass navy. This is the navy, okay. But it came out that internationally they were being referred to as kind of the fairy navy because of this activity, this homosexual activity. And when the I guess the government or the authorities or the head guys in the navy and the government found out that their international reputation was being insulted this way, tarnished by these labels, then they outlawed homosexual activity in the navy, and they stopped it. Anyway, again, this is going back years ago, and I read all this original material. If I've got certain facts wrong, please feel free to correct me in the comments. I know some of you guys are super history nuts. Okay, so the point is, Japan has always been really concerned with their international image, right? Now, in 1868, let's go back again. Meiji period started. And of course, it's 1868 in Western time, but in those years, that became Meiji Year 1, I suppose. And they outlawed irezumi, which, by the way, means injecting skin into, literally, if you look at the kanji of ire means to stick or enter, right? And zumi is ink. So literal meaning of the Japanese kanji would be, what the kanji is, enter ink, I believe. Let's see, is that correct? Enter ink, yeah, black ink, okay. So that's the literal meaning of Japanese kanji. There's also, some people, there are a bunch of ways, by the way, to say tattoo, but that's the most common, okay? And nowadays, even the word tattoo is understood by most Japanese. So in 1868, tattooing was made illegal, and as a result, all these people's tattoos suddenly were not allowed to work, right? And as a result, basically the Yakuza became created. Of course, there were already criminal forces. I'm sure there was organized crime back then, but they had to kind of go underground and become underground mafia. And that's when the Yakuza, according to my reading, became strong, or that's when they started really to flourish, okay? So that basically gave birth to the Yakuza, let's just say that. Anyway, that's 1868, okay? Now when the Americans came, and I believe it was in 1948 or so, the Americans came and we won the war and all that, blah, blah, blah. And they made tattooing legal again. But by that point, you know, tattooing had been illegal for so long that it had gotten a really bad reputation. And even now, it's got a bad rep, and people discriminate against you if you have tattoos, even if they're completely innocent tattoos. You know, in the West, people get like butterflies on their ankles and cute little things on their bodies, right? Whatever. You would be discriminated. You would not be right now. Now, the way things are now, there are still public swimming pools, hot springs, public baths, and jobs that you cannot take if you have a visible tattoo. And about 6 years ago, the mayor of Osaka actually declared that everyone who works for the government is not allowed to have a visible tattoo, and you've either got to get it removed or go find another job. And you could do that. I mean, this is the kind of country where that kind of stuff happens. Now, as you know, in 2020 is coming up, and the Japanese will get the Olympics. So as a result, Japan has been trying to actively encourage bathhouses and hot springs to start allowing people with tattoos in, because they know that when the Westerners come over to visit, the tourists are going to come. A lot of tourists have tattoos, and they don't. And it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean they're part of the Yakuza or anything. And they're going to be really confused. It's going to create a lot of problems when they're not allowed in. There have already been some problems. A few years ago, a Maori woman was not allowed into an onsen in Hokkaido. Recently, however, she successfully entered a few bathhouses or hot spring sentos, whatever you want to call them. There's a few very public places where you get nude and take off your clothes and your tattoos are visible. Anyway, she had tattoos on her face, and now since that incident, she's apparently been allowed into bathhouses, onsens. So it's getting better. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, a lot of foreigners like to bitch about this on SNS or social networks, Facebook, etc. And as I've said, it's been kind of a waste of time. But recently, a hero, a champion of tattoos has emerged from the least likely place you would ever think, okay? There's a person on the internet named Ryuchell. Not the internet. There's a Japanese talent. He's a TV celebrity named Ryucheru. And I can never say his name right, because his name is Ryuchell, but I always want to say Ryucheru, and it's a man, okay? Did you get that right? Ryucheru, okay. So Ryucheru is a man, and I think he's married to his girlfriend named Peko. I think that's right. And yeah, I think so. I'm not sure about this, but anyway, Ryucheru did get married, but he's dating this girl for 2 years, and they got married and they had a baby. But if you were to meet Ryucheru or see him on TV for the first time, you might be confused because he looks like a woman. He's very feminine. And I gotta be honest with you. I was raised to frown or be confused, not confused, but to look down on men who were overly feminine like this, as you know, they're basically sissies, and that's disgusting. Why are they doing that? Be a man, kind of stuff. As I've grown older, I've become much more accepting of alternative lifestyles and stuff. And actually, I'm kind of I guess I would say, I champion LGBT rights. And did I say LGBT? Is that right? Lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transsexual. Yeah. Anyway, you know what I'm talking. Alternative lifestyles. I'm all for it. I don't care anymore. But I got to tell you, because of the way I was raised, when I see people like Ryuchell on TV being overly flamboyant, and it's kind of grates on me a little bit. Not just because it's a man. It's just he's like really over the top, like flamboyant. So anyway, but I've watched them become famous over the past year or so. And you see them much more on TV. The way Japanese TV works is they kind of like, I don't know. When someone gets famous, you just start seeing him anywhere. That's what happened with SMAP before they closed down. They were like on every single channel all the time before they broke up. SMAP is like the boys group of Japan, who were around for like 30 years before they broke up. Anyway, back to Ryucheru. So Ryucheru is a super flamboyant, makeup-wearing, very effeminate guy who is also a big Instagram star, of course, and he's recently got married to his girlfriend, and they had a baby, and the baby's name is Link. And Ryuchell got a tattoo on his shoulder, and the tattoo is basically a smiley face, and it shows like wings and like a little halo, which makes me think that that's what we did when our dog died, you know, like people drew pictures of a dog with angel wings and a halo because it's dead, but I guess it doesn't mean that for him. So anyway, he had a baby, and baby's name is Link, and he got a tattoo, and he put the tattoo. He took a picture of the tattoo, and he took a picture of that tattoo and put it on his Instagram account. And man, the people went nuts. They were so angry, and how can you do that? And they criticized him, and they said things like, you know, you can't take him to a public bath, and you're such a selfish person. And I believe he took the initial picture down of his tattoo. I don't think the baby's picture was there. Of course, I read about this later. But what was interesting was he came out and defended the whole thing. And it's a pretty good defense. And what was admirable, to me at least, was that he said he's trying to change society. And he's made a ruckus about his tattoo. And a lot of people are supporting him. So it's good. You're seeing a lot of people come online and say, you know, you're right, you know, whatever. So one of the things about his defense, just to explain, was he said that, you know, his father got a tattoo of a dragon when he was born, and he was raised with that, and he always thought it was cool, and he didn't suffer any ill effects, because a lot of people said, your son's going to suffer ill effects because you have a tattoo. You're so selfish. But he goes, my dad had a tattoo, and, you know, I didn't suffer any. I don't have any bad memories of that. I mean, I guess you could argue that, you know, he turned out to be quite an effeminate man, but I don't know. He's heterosexual, apparently. Not that it matters, you know, whatever. Like if he turned out gay, that would have been bad. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But I did look at his comments, and they were pretty impressive comments. I actually took some notes here. So I'll put these in the description below me, so you can see, for those of you who are interested in Japanese. He said, with this body, この体で with this body, 僕は大切な家族を笑顔を守るのです。I will protect my smiling family. With this body. なので、この体で大切な体の名前を刻みました。I believe that. So he's using kind of an old-fashioned word for carving, which is another way to say put a tattoo in. So he's protecting his let me see. Let me see. On this body, my important family's name, I tattooed. So that's why I tattooed my body with my family's name, Link, I guess. 隠すつもりもありません. So I have no intention of hiding this tattoo. Because a lot of people said, you're going to have to hide that too. Like, I'm not going to hide that tattoo. But at the same time, he said, but I'm not going to go anywhere public either. Then he said, でも、いちでも出したいわけではありません. But I have no intention to show it off either. Okay. 自然に生きたいです. I intend to live naturally, he says. 偏見がなくなりますように. And do my best to make bigotry against tattoos. It doesn't say against tattoos, but to make bigotry disappear. 偏見 is discrimination or bigotry. 何かに怯えて何もせずに生きてても、この社会は変わりません. If you just live in fear and don't do anything, this society will never change, which I think is a pretty impressive thing to say. Yeah. So that's what he said. He says, you know, I'm not going to live in fear and hide and hide, you know, because society will never change. Obieru is a slightly more advanced way to say fear. Anyway, 自分らしく、そして社会を変えようという強い気持ちで一緒に明日も頑張ろうね. live your own way, and let's change society with strong feeling together from tomorrow. Let's fight tomorrow, on and on. Okay, everybody? So it's basically, I mean, that's kind of a literal translation, but what he's saying is, hey, let's all try to change society together, for those of you who support me. So I'll put a link to his Instagram, and you can go check that out. But the good news is that I do think this shows that all the positive comments on his Instagram, because he's a huge Instagrammer, like 1 point whatever million followers, I believe. Better check that out. I could be wrong, but let me see. He's got 1.2 million followers. Pretty positive. If you look at, as soon as you look at the Instagram, you're going to think he's a girl. But you know, that's fine. Anyway, yes, my upbringing shows through in the way I react to him. I admit that, but I'm doing my best to change as well. Anyway, so Japan is changing slowly. Still, even though the government has pushed for hot spring owners and people who work in those industries to allow people with tattoos, you know, in. It hasn't really changed a lot. I've still, when I visit an onsen or a hot spring, I still see signs that say people with tattoos are not allowed. I will offer this theory though. A lot of the foreign cars, sidetrack for a second, but a lot of the foreign cars in Japan are owned also by mafia, or in the past have been. So Yakuza will own, for example, a foreign car, like a Mercedes-Benz or maybe an American car, but usually, I believe, an expensive foreign car. And as a result, what has happened in the past is that they will park their cars in garages, and then when they come back and get their car, they'll claim there's a scratch on it and give the garage owner, you know, misery. Just give him a hard time and demand some kind of payment. And as a result, if you go to, you'll still see signs at garages that say no foreign cars allowed. And they're not saying no Yakuza allowed. They're saying no foreign cars allowed because Yakuza often own cars. So perhaps one of the reasons that people with tattoos are discriminated against or refused entry is because you can't say, hey, no Yakuza members allowed. So instead they say no people with tattoos allowed, and that usually includes anyone who's a Yakuza member, right? And so those people are kept out. Anyway, that might be one reason those tattoos, those laws exist, or those rules exist. They're not laws, they're rules. But the way Japan works, you know, I think there are maybe laws that protect people from discrimination, but they're not enforced. So people get away with it. Anyway, that's my video for today. I hope you learned something. Please check the links in the description, and if you found this interesting, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have a tattoo, I don't know, if you've had experiences in Japan and you have a tattoo, please let me know. I am interested in the way you are treated in Japan, especially if you have a tattoo. Okay, that's all I got to say for you. I'm gonna make another quick video experimenting with my new microphones on my other channel before I hit the sack, because it is getting kind of late. But I will see you guys in the next video, and thanks for watching.
Bye bye. Yeah, bye.